So welcome to the first episode of our video blog Easy. If I wanted to play with the acronyms like Robin Williams did in Good Morning Vietnam, I would introduce our program as Easy About CEE by CCC. So joke aside, Easy stands for the three participants, Egle, Zoltan, and Emil. This program is about consumer-related issues seasoned with a bit of politics about Central and Eastern Europe, since we all come from former communist bloc countries, and the show is powered by the Consumer Choice Center. So just sit back and take it easy. And now for a short introduction of the participants. First over to Egle.
Hi guys. Actually, my country wasn't part of communist bloc. My country was part of Soviet Union, and we were the first ones to break free. So important correction here.
It is a good
Uh,
correction. Well, you were
yeah,
still communist as we all were, so don't deny
we
it.
we were never voluntarily communist. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. Good
That's
for
for
you.
sure. So I'm Agle. I'm from Lithuania. I'm head of digital and innovation policy at the Consumer Choice Center. Very happy to be here and discuss important things for Central Eastern Europe.
Hi, my name is Emil. I am from a Warsaw Treaty country, like Zoltan in this case. So we had it a little bit less bad than the USSR itself. I am research manager at the Consumer Choice Center, where I deal with everything having to do with stats and facts.
All right, and this is me, Zoltán Kész. I'm a former member of the Hungarian Parliament, and now I'm working as the Government Affairs Manager for the Consumer Choice Center. And so, since we're a couple of days, about 10 days after the European Parliament elections, we thought that it might be a good idea to talk about the results, especially focusing on Central and Eastern Europe. So I just want to ask you guys if you're surprised by the results in your countries and in the turnout, and whether you got anything interesting out of the election in your neighborhood. Why don't we start with Emil now?
Sure. On my end, I remember going into the election right before that. I saw a poll on the 30th of May by Inscop, a Romanian polling company, that put the coalition, the governing coalition, the Partidul Social Democrat, the Social Democrats, and the National Liberals, PNL, Partidul Național Liberal, on first place at 48% of the vote. And that made a lot of waves. People thought, wow, that can be right. That's not going to be the result. We know the nationalists, AUR, the Alliance for the Unity of Romanians, Alianța pentru Uniunea Românilor, had a very good showing in all the other polls. So it came as a bit of a surprise internally that they actually did not, the AUR and the sister party, the sister nationalist party, SOS, uh, uh, did not do well in these elections. They went way below the polls. They were at one point polling around high 20s to low 30s, and then they got 16% of the vote and barely 5% of the vote, respectively. So 16% ish for our and 5% barely over the threshold for Diana Șoșoaca's party, for SOS. Whereas the coalition did get 48%, exactly on the mark of the initial survey. That was a strong showing for the ruling party by Prime Minister Marcel Ciolacu's organizational skills. It also showed their political nous, their political knowledge. They purposefully organized the Europarliamentary elections, the MEP elections, at the same time as local elections, which allowed them to really ride on the tails of their existing party support and mobilization. And that helped them a lot. In terms of turnout, Romania was ninth in Europe at 52%. Uh, Initially, we thought there would be a higher turnout, but as you know, more people from the countryside vote in the morning, and later in the day, the people from cities tend to vote more towards 5-6 p.m. The end results kind of evened out, and we got a pretty average vote. Unfortunately, um, significantly higher than Lithuania. Sorry, Egle. and but lower than places like Luxembourg or Belgium. And on our end, it was really a confirmation of the existing power party. For the first time in Romania's post 1989 history, the ruling party won with the diaspora. So PSD and PNL got the highest votes among people living outside of Romania, which tend to vote against them. Overall, it was not a. There were elements of a protest vote, the way I was taught to look at EU elections back in 2015 when I was doing political science. Yes, I am old. I'm older than I look. But the results favored the incumbents by far. 19 out of 33 Europarliamentarians, even after MEPs, even after recount with the Jefferson method. That's it on Romania, really. The sentiment, I think, was best described by people interviewed for exit polls. They said, "Yeah, the people in charge may be crooks, but at least they're not pro-Russia. So I'm gonna vote for them." That was it. That was the main way that people viewed it. Mm.
I was mentioned, so I'll continue. In Lithuania, the turnout was very low. It was roughly 28%. I don't know why. Perhaps because it's summer. Perhaps because we have 3 elections this year plus a referenda. The presidential elections are already past us. We have parliamentary elections later in October. So people were not as active in the EP elections, and I think only Croatia had a lower turnout than Lithuania, which resulted in a lot of traditional parties getting the seats. We have 2 EPP members from Homeland Union, Lithuanian. Sorry, 3 members from Homeland Union, Lithuanian Christian Democrats, who are part of EPP. It looks like we are going to have 2 ECR members, one of them being Lithuanian Polish Minority Party representative Waldemar Tomaszewski, and the former health minister of Lithuania, Aurelijus Veryga, who was one of the biggest proponents of plain packaging, tobacco, alcohol sales restrictions, all the other things in the previous government. We will have 2 Renew members, from 2 liberal parties. We have too many liberal parties for such a small country, but that's how it goes here. And the only elected MEP, which was also mentioned by Politico as one of the quirky ones, is Petras Gražulis, a recently impeached former MP of Lithuania who's anti-LGBT, pro-family values, has multiple kids from different women type of person, a very traditional thing for traditionalists in Central Eastern Europe. But so the results are very good, I would say, in Lithuania, but the low turnout itself really reveals a bigger problem that we all share in Central Eastern Europe. People don't understand Brussels and Strasbourg. People are not involved in things that are going on over there. They don't really follow the actions or the procedures or any kind of topics that our elected MEPs are involved in. In the Lithuanian case, we care about Ukraine, we care about, pushing Russia away from the continent. So these are the things that our MEPs are very active in, especially those who are in EPP. Other than that, nobody understands what's going on. And I think the results also are a reflection of that.
All right, so I'm coming from Hungary, and surprisingly, Hungary had the highest turnout in Central Eastern Europe during this European Parliament elections, which is surprising. We had close to 60%, and this was the 5th in the whole European Union. I'm saying surprisingly to many people, but not surprisingly to me necessarily, because I expected a high turnout because of the past 3 months of political turmoil in Hungary with the appearance of a new party, a guy coming from the Fidesz ranks. In February, he is the he's the like former justice minister's husband, ex-husband actually. So they got divorced, and he formed a new party, and he actually just replaced the opposition. So I could talk about it for hours, but I don't want to. So all he did in this election is that he replaced the opposition. So right now, what we see now is that Fidesz, well, their numbers changed a little bit. So they have -2 compared to the last cycle. So they still have 11. The new party TISA has 7. The far right has 1, and the old opposition is just basically the remaining 3. 2 seats actually. I mean, my math is not very good. So 2 seats. So what I expect, I don't know. I'm very skeptical. Although there's a huge enthusiasm in the country right now because of the new party, my enthusiasm has been turned down a little bit. Let's put it this way, due to the experience that I have with Hungarian politics in the past decade or so. So giving the person the benefit of the doubt, I still want to wait a little bit to see whether everything is very genuine about the new party. They are accepted into the EPP, and which is an interesting blow to Fidesz, because they used to be part of EPP. Now they wanted to be part of ECR, but just recently Meloni showed Orban the middle finger. And just a question related to ECR, Orban and AUR, as Emil mentioned, AUR being part of ECR, just accepted a day ago. How do you see that? Because it's an interesting thing whether they are really conservative, because in Hungary they are depicted as like the very anti-Hungarian nationalist and so on.
Yeah. To kind of give a short history of the party, George Simeon kind of made his career through football and attracting like the football ultras. And one of the things about football ultras in Romanians was the sort of anti-Magyarism that they would display publicly, including create these sorts of culture war scenarios. But more recently, because of these political alliances, actually, George Simeon has been quite lenient, responding, including to Orban's suggestion that Romania should be in Schengen, and putting that as a sort of item on the agenda for the Hungarian presidency of the EU Council. So surprisingly tame compared to his past. But then again, this is a man who kind of first made his career with saying that he will create the reunification between, he will reunify Moldova and the Republic of Moldova and Romania. But now he's just this February, he is not allowed to even set foot in Moldova. Just this February, the Moldovan government renewed his interdiction for the next 5 years. So in terms of relationships, though there's a lot of culture war messaging, actually Orban and Simeon do get along.
Well, that's very interesting. And Agla, you mentioned that people don't understand what's going on in the European Parliament, which I totally agree with. It's the same in Hungary. People have zero idea what's happening there. So, do we have high expectations? Do you have high expectations from the new cycle, new 5-year cycle? Because if you look back at the past decades, we've seen a huge rise of regulation, and regulation, and that hurts competition, and that hurts a lot of things. So my expectations are low, but I'm looking at you, and I want to see some optimistic and positive faces. If not, let me know.
Yeah, well, being a pessimist is probably one of the easiest things a person could do, and pessimism is usually correct at the end of the day. Pessimists are correct, but obviously there are a few things that I wish the new parliamentarians, the new parliament, the new commission will focus on, from tech perspective at least. First, focusing on implementation rather than new regulations. We had so many new regulations over the past 5 years. The implementation part is important. It's too often in the European Union that policymakers, be it on a European Union's level or a national level, shoot to the moon expecting to land among the stars. That's the worst case scenario for them. Or let's start and then edit. But this is not very positive and sort of damages the reputation of both the European Union and the institution. It fuels populist agendas. It raises the blood pressure of businesses unnecessarily. The only caste who benefits from it are lawyers who have to explain every new regulation. So, from a tech point of view, I really hope that the European Parliament, together with the European Commission, will focus on implementation, the technological choice, will work on things that are actually hampering both innovation and the development of the European Union, be it public procurement, research, business and science cooperation, result-oriented academia, results, etc., etc. So these are my very small few expectations that I have.
Emil?
Romania came to the EU as among the most pro-EU countries ever, and that over time has eroded for the reasons that Egle suggested, but also because, in Romania's particular case, because of the whole kerfuffle with Schengen, where we have the Netherlands and Austria as the sort of perennial veto players in that game. And it's quite clear, just adding to Egle's suggestions, that the problems go deeper in terms of the institutional structure of the EU and the moment that is very good at blocking things and not so much as at enabling them at a structural level. And that's creating all sorts of frustrations and anxieties within the bloc. We have that old rhetorical saying about Europe at two speeds, but right now it feels like the speedometer has kind of broken, and we're kind of stuck in an era of temporary fractious coalitions that require a lot of populists beating the drum to get some sorts of wild promises across that will never actually materialize. And because pessimists are right, and because European pessimists are even more correct than usual pessimists, I agree with Egle that future looks a little bit glum, at least short to medium term.
Zoltan, you have been running a great project over the past 6 months or even more, Consumer Champs. Could you tell our audience more about the project? What are the outcomes? What was the goal? And what are your impressions about that?
Yeah, the Consumer Champs, which was also powered by the Consumer Choice Center, was one of the greatest projects that I took part in. We reached out to almost every MEP candidate in all the 27 countries and asked them about consumer-related problems and issues like innovation, tech, vaping, and so on and so forth. So we asked them how they relate to them, and we made a list of like who is a champ, who favors like issues that are pro innovation, for example. And it's a very interesting experience for many reasons. Once you delve into it, you look at the whole culture of transparency on parts of parties. Like who wants to answer, who wants to admit what they think. If you look at Scandinavian countries, Germany, or Baltic countries, or even the even Czechia, you'll see that politicians, there are more transparent and want to express their opinion on these issues. Like if you go to Spain or Portugal or Greece or Italy, it'll go even like if you go south, like oh my God, if you look at parties' websites, you're lost. Uh, even if you look at authorities like official authority websites, you're lost. And the outcome of the consumer champs, you see a lot of very motivated politicians that especially coming from these areas that I mentioned, from geographical areas. And when you compare what we have just said, you guys also said about the European Union being mostly about being like for regulation and even for over-regulation, we see a lot of answers and a lot of politicians coming from Baltic countries, Scandinavia, and Germany, who are totally against that and want to reform the EU in that respect. So in that respect, I'm optimistic. I want to see more champs being involved as MEPs and uh, you know, interestingly also saying that now with some Hungarian connection, the Hungarian presidency of the European Union Council is starting July the 1st with a very interesting slogan of "Make Europe Great Again." I don't know. I want to make Europe great again in a different way. I want to make Europe great again with these champs who got elected as MEPs and want to see them work and want to see them succeed in their issues. So that's my tiny bit of optimism for Europe.
Yeah, my optimism is similar. We don't need to make Europe great again because Europe is great. We just need to enable its capacity for innovation to actually come through, remove the barriers, create the conditions for them to flourish. And speaking of conditions, I think Zoltan is still being modest about consumer champs. We had more information than the EU did itself about some of the candidates.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true, and that's what I mentioned. When you look at like websites of authorities and official things, even now, even today, like I was researching some of the countries, and you find information about 2019. Come on.
Yes, yes. Unfortunately, as someone who works with data, I can tell you that the part about data aggregation can be very painful, especially when you see sources from like not even 5 years ago, sometimes 10 years ago, ancient by political standards, and that's the other thing about consumer champs, that it helps people connect candidates who might not have been known with consumers who are interested in that specific issue, and helps consumers if they want to bring something to us, if they want to say this topic is really important, they have the means to do so. So it's not just a vote. Sorry, Agla, you wanted to say.
That's okay. I was eager. I would be a bad Lithuanian if I didn't bring up Russia and Russia's influence on the European Parliament's candidates. And Zoltan, you've mentioned that you've seen some similarities in the communication of certain parties. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, that's a very interesting thing because I was researching parties' websites as well, and when it comes to far right and far left, the only similarities that you see in these parties is that the narrative that they use related to Russia is very similar. Whether it's a far right Latvian party, or I'm sorry, a far left Latvian party and a far right, let's like Rassemblement National in France, it's basically the same narrative when it comes to the war in Ukraine and the role of Russia. We can talk about conspiracy theories behind all that, but I don't believe in conspiracy theories. I believe in well organized stuff, and in my opinion, this is well organized. So even more than a year ago, I raised the red flag about Russian involvement in campaigns, and I think there was a strong Russian involvement in this campaign, especially in the online world.
Yeah, so let's make Europe great again and make sure there are no scandals with MEPs involved with Russian, Qatari, or Chinese money in the next term.
Yeah,
That's my little wish.
that's a good final word, and let's wrap up our first episode of Easy. Thank you, Egle. Thank you, Emil, for participating, and uh, well, let's make Europe great again. We'll see each other again probably in our next episode when Hungary has already taken over the reins. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.